copy of this? That's like the best intro I've ever had. Good afternoon. So obviously, as the screen said, I'm Dave Collins. If you looked on the website earlier, I was somebody else. It had my picture, but somebody else's bio. So that was fun. I'm not him, I'm me. And I'm with an organization called Cycura here in Canada. If you know Well Health, Cycura is basically the company that helps secure Well Health. So does a lot of their data work and things like that. I'm also the president and CISO of Collins GRC, which is a boutique consulting firm. I bring that up obviously because my bio wasn't out there and you're wondering who is this idiot who's going to start spewing stuff. But I've been doing this a long time. You'd never know I'm 25 years old. I've been in cybersecurity and governance, compliance, regulatory for the better part of 36 years. And to make things even more awkward, I actually just left the employment of RSM, who I'm sure you've seen out here on the floor, under good terms. Great people. I'm going to give a shout out to them because some of my data, since I just left there, is actually pulled from some RSM reports. I would encourage you to go talk to them. If you've never seen their middle market report, talk to the guys there and get your hands on a copy of it. It is really a fantastic overview of things. But before we jump into the slides, I know middle afternoon, everybody's getting kind of worn down. It's a long day. Got a theater background, so I want to do a little bit of interaction with you guys. So, how many of you have a car? Show of hands. Cool. See, this is the cardio for the day, right? How many of your cars have a touch screen? How many of your cars have a radio? How many of your cars don't have tires? Exactly. Right? We're talking about foundations when we talk about things, right? So you can have a car, you can have all these cool things on it. You can have a supercharger, you can have touch screens, you can have blinking lights, all kinds of fun stuff, but pretty useless if you don't have tires, right? Now I've just got a box that I can sit in, right? And along with that, if I've got a car, unless I'm driving an EV, I've got maintenance. I got to do an oil change now and then. I've got to do some other things. But I got to focus on the basics, right? If I don't have any of that stuff, all the extra money that I've spent on all the fancy stuff means nothing, right? It's the same approach when we talk about cybersecurity. So it's always a little unnerving to come speak at a conference like this because I'm usually the anti-person they want, right? Everybody that sponsors these conferences, if you go out there and look, it's a bunch of tools. And there's nothing wrong with tools. They're great. But what we need to think about is what secures us before the tools do, right? Cybersecurity incidents are always in the news. The list of data breaches, and this is within like the last 18 months, right? We know about it because we're in the industry. We hear about these things. But then the people that we have to answer to, the C-levels, right, or the boards, they only hear about it when it comes up in the news. And then it becomes a major issue for us, right? It's not, what are we doing from a cybersecurity standpoint? It's, wow, is that going to impact us? Well, I don't know, is it? Because, yeah, Ticketmaster got breached, but, we're not buying tickets from Ticketmaster on a corporate account, so we're probably okay. But when you look at it, the challenge we face is that the people that control the purse strings, the people that help us deal with this stuff and prioritize things, only get like 2% of the information, right? So if we look at some of the most significant attacks recently, MGM, right, the global entertainment casino company, right? Huge budget. They got ransomware, right? Names, driver's licenses, financial account information cost them over $100 million in revenue, shut down all their slot machines, shut down their players' card systems, shut down their room key systems, right? We can talk about hygiene all day long, but massive impact to that on a global scale. AT&T, malicious actor on a third-party platform, right? Third party. So poor third-party oversight. Somebody got in, data breach, information, text messages, cell phone records, all of this stuff for AT&T consumers. Loved it when I got that notice. I have AT&T Wi-Fi in my car. All of my information, because I have a hotspot in my car, compromised. Couple up here, Royal Bank of Canada, phishing incident. Massive phishing campaign tricked thousands of customers into providing sensitive information. Right? Canadian Revenue, vulnerability in the online tax filing system. Right? Over 2 million Canadian taxpayer records. And Snowflake, right? And again, I'm not throwing any tool makers under the bus. Snowflake's a great product, right? But multiple breaches in 2024, over 165 different customers impacted from that, right? So you can bet around the globe, when these things came up, there were CEOs and boards everywhere going to their CISOs, going to their security team and going, should we be worried about this? Well, I don't know. Do you have a gambling problem? Are you at MGM? Are you playing in Vegas? What's going on? Why would that concern you, right? But they only get this part of it. The question they should be asking is, what caused it? Why is this an issue? What is the cause of this something we should think about? So if we look at it, right, it's not about the data that was lost. It's not about anything else, but MGM got socially engineered. Somebody scraped enough data about one MGM employee that they could pose as that employee, call the help desk, pass off, and get a password reset. And then, because of their poor hygiene, their whole network, right? But they were socially engineered. AT&T, third-party security. They didn't do their due diligence on making sure that their third parties were well protected and well secured. Royal Bank of Canada, phishing, social engineering, security awareness training issues. Canadian Revenue, internal coding error, right? SDLC and security issues. Snowflake, security controls, password controls, IAM, auditing, monitoring, you name it. None of these organizations has small IT budgets. None of these organizations has small security footprints, right? They have all the tools you could imagine, yet every one of them had a massive breach involved. Why is that? If we look back to 2023, because obviously they're still compiling numbers from 24, more than 450,000 new malware programs detected daily. Right? Now keep in mind, that's not 450,000 brand new coded, it's malware variants and everything else. But think of the scale of that, right? 3.4 billion phishing emails every day. That's 1.2% of the global email traffic on a daily basis. And that's only going up, right? Average system downtime, 20 days. And average cost in 23 of an incident, of a breach incident, 4.45 million, right? We always used to hear bad actors get in a system and they're low and slow, right? It's like barbecue. They sit there undetected, they just cook for a long time, right? In 2022, that dwell time was 16 days. 23, it's 10. And keep in mind, this is before the big AI push, right? What's AI done to us? It's shortened that time. It's taken away a lot of the clear indicators that we had for phishing campaigns. Oh, bad spelling, grammatical formatting, all of those kind of things that were blatantly obvious are going away, right? Because they've got the same tools that we do. So again, shout out to my RSM former family. If we look at their 2024 report, significant cybersecurity concerns persisted. 28% of middle market executives claimed their company had experienced a breach. Not they thought they did, they knew they did. Breaches on the rise, 20% from 12% a year previously. Understaffed security departments, if they have a security department. Changing technology and cyber liability, right? And I know there's been several people today from some of the other vendors that have talked about cyber insurance and the pain that is involved in that. I can tell you I've seen it firsthand. I was involved with some of my previous clients that had issues, and if they didn't answer everything right, cyber insurance companies are canceling policies, they're refusing to pay, they're backdating canceling, all kinds of potential issues, right? So a lot of problems that we've got to face. And we can go out there and we can throw any number of tools at these things. And there's not a bad tool at any of the vendors that are out there. I use quite a few of them. I support quite a few of them. But where does the tool start? And where does your security start? Right? One of the biggest challenges we have as CISOs is we need to do more with less. It's the age-old story. Our budgets are diminishing. What we can spend, where we can spend it, how we can spend it, how we can justify the spend is an everyday fight, right? So I would encourage you to think about, are you spending the money the right way? Are you getting the most bang for the buck? Does it do me any good to put a DLP system in if my users are going to click on every phishing link that comes in anyway? Does it do me any good to do cybersecurity training and beef up my employees rather than put some blinky light over the top of it that's going to tell me when things have gone bad? Is it better to spend on prevention, or is it better to spend on action after the fact, right? A lot of the stuff that you need to do doesn't cost. You've already got programs in place for it. You can do security awareness training inside and educate your users and get them more in tune with what's going on and give them an ownership feel that they're involved in this, that they're directly responsible for it. And it costs you nothing but maybe some man hours. Maybe you buy a security awareness tool. Probably a lot cheaper than going out and buying a new SIM, a new alert system, whatever, right? The current tools you have, are you using them? And I don't mean, yeah, we've got it turned on and it's throwing alerts at us and blinking. Do you have it configured? Do you have it tuned? Is it doing the things that you need it to do? Is it doing the same things that 3 other tools that you've spent on are doing? Can I get rid of a couple of those? Which one's the best? Right? That's going to be budget recoup. There's a lot of cleanup that can be done there. What's your cybersecurity awareness? What's your headcount model? Right? Do you have somebody who focuses on security, or do you have the IT guy over there who's responsible for the network maintenance and everything else? And when he gets time at the end of his 80-hour week, then he's going to look at a security report, even though he doesn't really know what to do with it. What does your staff training program look like, and how do you retain talent? Right? Right now, this is a huge question for everybody because it's an employee market right now, right? Salary costs are going through the roof. CISOs are not cheap, but neither are your regular staff. So how do you deal with that? Well, what about if I start training them? What if I give them a reason to stay here and I provide advancement opportunities? I help educate them, right? If somebody's got a passion for something and they're your help desk guy, but they want to become a network engineer, I can facilitate that, right? That's going to drive retention. That's going to keep that person here. We need to prepare for trends, right? And the nice part about this, when we talk about focusing back on those foundations, on those basic things, is it doesn't matter what any of these are. There was a talk earlier, somebody's talking about AI and all the threats that are coming from AI. There was another talk about quantum computing and all the threats that are going to be coming from quantum computing, right? Great, hey, there's going to be a new tool to monitor this in quantum computing. There's going to be a new tool to monitor this in AI. Managing identities, developing talent, managing as a service, right? This is a huge one. Just because something is as a service does not mean you're not responsible for it. It's still your data. It's like the old cloud saying, right? There's no cloud, it's just somebody else's computer. If you're using an as a service anything, it's still yours. You still have to make sure that that vendor is doing right by you. Right? Automation and AI are going to handle triage. They're going to become your level 1, your level 2 help desk. Fantastic. But is it configured right? Is it doing it right? Do you have the right controls, the right vision, the right visibility over all these? Right? Data and people are going to continue to fuel risk and opportunity, and you're going to see market consolidation. Less tools to choose from, higher prices for those tools. More employees, less employees, employees all over the place, remote work, do we go back into the office? We've got to control all of it. Right? At the end of the day, the only secure computer is the one that's not plugged in or turned on. Right? No power to it whatsoever. That doesn't work in the business world. But how do we address when the computer's turned on and where the blinky lights start to be utilized? Right? The great thing about computers and the absolutely terrifying thing about computers is they only do what they're told to do. Right? Whether that's you telling them what to do, or the company that programmed your software that you installed on that computer, or the company that created the algorithms for the AI tool that you're using on that computer. So how do you know about all of that stuff? How do you combat it? Right? You can't. I'm not going to go through 10 billion lines of code to look at my Microsoft Office installation and go, I don't like that one. There's a certain level of trust. But if I talk to my employees and say, hey, if something weird pops up, don't just click on it. Give me a phone call. Let me know. Ask somebody. Stop for a second and think. 9 times out of 10, your gut instinct is right. But we're always so busy. We're always chasing everything, trying to be more efficient and everything else, that all this stuff gets bypassed. We never give anybody a chance to think and to function as they would need to. We just need them to crank their product out the door, right? So it doesn't matter what trends are coming, what new technology or anything else. There's always going to be that gap between the chair and the blinky lights. And that's what we need to address, right? If you look at any compliance standard, any regulatory standard, any cyber insurance standard, the first things that they are looking at is, I want to see your policies. When's the last time you reviewed them? When's the last time they were updated? Do you have an inventory? And it's not just your asset, your physical asset inventory. Do you know where your protected data is, your confidential data is? How do you secure it? Do you use MFA? What kind of MFA? Do you use it across the environment or only on specific things? Right? There was a great talk earlier that I sat in on from Cribble, where he said, cyber insurance premiums have gone through the roof. I've experienced it firsthand. Right? When you used to get a cyber insurance questionnaire, 10 questions, you could fill it out in crayon and go, yeah, we do all that stuff. Yeah, don't worry about it. Now it's 300 questions. And it's detailed. And it's still being reviewed by most people who don't understand the stuff. It's the box checkers and the bean counters. But the cyber insurance industry is on the cusp of, I'm not taking your word for it anymore. Prove it. You say you do it, I want to see the data. Show me. When's the last time your business continuity plan was tested? When's the last time your disaster recovery plan was tested? What were the results? What have you fixed since then? Insurance companies are going to ask, just like your investors will probably ask, just like the people that are involved in whatever data breach you have are going to ask, right? And all of these kind of things, none of the tools will tell you, because this all happens before that. This is all foundational stuff. So the challenge we constantly fight is navigating this changing landscape all the time, right? Global economic headwinds. God knows, yes, I'm from that evil empire down south of the border, and we're still sorry. Those of us that actually can think and function down there, we can't explain it either. We just keep walking around. But global economic issues, global governmental issues, right? the stuff going on over between Russia and Ukraine. All of that plays an impact around the world, whether you realize it or not, whether you feel like you're cushioned from it or not. It impacts cybersecurity, it impacts supply chain, it impacts software development and transactional activities and all kinds of things. We have to be prepared for that. We have to address that stuff. A more complex cyber solution landscape, right? Come to this conference next year, there'll probably be at least 3 or 4 new tools out there. And right, my tool always does something just a little bit better than the one before him. But again, do I already have a tool that does that? Do I have 3 tools that do that? Do I even know? Lack of board level understanding. This is changing, right? Now, I will say one of the things we got right recently in the US, it's probably about to be undone, but the SEC started saying, boards can't claim ignorance anymore. If we come to you and want to know what's your cybersecurity program like, you don't need to be able to know all the details, but you got to be able to tell me some real information, not just, oh, well, I don't know, but this guy handles it all, right? You've got to be able to speak to that from a regulatory standpoint. The EU, here in Canada, there's a lot of other, I wouldn't say formally regulated things, but there is an expectation that the people running the shows have knowledge about the shows that they're running, right? So it's not just blank canvas anymore. It's, no, I can speak to this. And we have a paper trail from board meetings and from other meetings and presentations and everything else that we're aware of what's going on. An increasing gap in the workforce market, right? This is, like we said, this is huge. It's not just shop talk that we're short-staffed, right? Guys like me, CISOs, don't want to do the job anymore because we're getting sued in civil lawsuits because the company doesn't protect us and back us up when there's an issue. Even though I can say, hey, I've been telling these guys for years that this was bad and they got to fix it. And then we get popped and I go, hey, look, I said something. I was still responsible, so I'm going to get sued. And there's recent direct evidence of that. And then minding the gap of shared responsibility. And this is one that I saw more than I cared to in the consulting world. How many of you have talked to people who are like, if you say, what's your backup solution? Say, oh, I'm in the cloud. I don't need to worry about it. Right? Okay, great. How many times did AWS go down last year? But you're in the cloud, it's okay. I'm sure you worked right through that. Your business wasn't shut down for 4 days. Right? Cloud's great, but it's almost become like when you get a new piece of software and you have to click on the accept the terms, nobody in here scrolls through that whole thing and reads it. I don't. I might print a copy and say I'm going to read it later. I never do, but right, we talk cloud, we have to understand what they're responsible for and what I'm responsible for. I'm putting my data out there, I still have responsibility. Right? And every time you hear, oh, that company got breached on AWS, and they're like, oh, it's AWS's fault. No. You're responsible for the security of your S3 bucket. They just give you the space. Did you read through and understand those instructions that was your responsibility? Probably not. But we need to keep a focus on the basics. We can throw everything that we want at it. But if we don't know what we have, if we don't know that we have layered security in front of it, right? And I'm not talking just even IT security. When we talk security at a company, right? Or security at your house, just because you have a safe and all your jewels are in it doesn't mean you leave the front door wide open, right? You have layers. It's the same thing here. Physical security works hand in hand with digital security, with IT security, with all of that stuff, right? Comes back to a risk equation at the end of the day, but what do we have? And are we taking the right steps that we feel are risk appropriate? And then insurance, right? Insurance is not the end-all be-all for everything anymore. Insurance companies don't want to pay out anymore. They never did, but now they're tightening everything so they don't have to. So we have to make sure if we're going to get that and have that safety net, that we're doing what we say we're doing. And that's an everyday. It's not just we can check the box. I've got to be able to show that it's operationalized, that it's part of our culture. And then we have to think about what comes next, right? And that's the thing we can't stress enough when we think of all this. Excuse me. No matter what technology comes down the path, doesn't matter. You could take anything and throw it on that slide, and we could go back 10 years or we could go forward 30 years. The weakest part in the organization is between the chair and the keyboard. It's not a bad thing. Our challenge is, how do we strengthen that resource? How do we put the guardrails around it? How do we put policies in place that give us accountability, that assign responsibility? How do we educate our staff so they have the ability to help identify some of this, or even if they have just that off feeling that something's not right, they stop and ask, right? Give somebody a chance to think for a couple of seconds. Don't just make them crunch numbers. It's going to be required as AI rolls out further, right? Phishing emails, they're getting cleaned up. I'm sure many of you heard about the video conference wire transfer issue over in China last year. $25 million. Finance officer said, man, this request sounds really weird. I'm getting from the CFO that I need to wire this money. And the CFO said, hey, jump on the meeting. Here's the video link. The entire board was on the video link. And it was all deepfake. Every one of them. 6 board members. And they're all like, yep, no, he's got to transfer those funds. They got $2 million back. But that's where the technology is, right? And did that poor CFO have the chance to sit there and go, that video looks a little choppy, or, why is his mouth not moving right when he's speaking? No, he's sitting there in front of the board. He's got to act, right? At the end of the day, I got to imagine if he would have stopped for a second and said, something just doesn't feel right. Let me, guys, I'm sorry, let me do one more check. Even if it was really them, they would have appreciated that extra step before you're going to wire $25 million. Right? It's that ability to stop and think. But to do that, we have to give them the tools. We have to educate them. We have to make sure they have the awareness that they need. And it doesn't matter what comes next, because whether you want to call it cynicism or education or whatever you want to identify it as, if we cover those basics, if we educate them, if we put the right foundations in place, everything else comes in line. Right? The old adage is, compliance is not security. Security is compliance. If I focus on the security aspect and I do what I should do, the right stuff that I should do, I'll get the compliance stuff. Compliance should absolutely guide some of it, especially regulatory items and things like that. That's going to help define where you're going to set the bar. But if all I'm focused on is checking boxes, I'm never going to be secure. So if you take nothing else away from this, and I know it seems like it's kind of all over the place, figure out a cybersecurity framework to follow, set a baseline. Because the baseline is going to help you drive the foundations and set them. Right? Every one of these, one of the first things they ask is policy. Right? If you go into an organization and you don't have policies, doesn't mean written down. But if you haven't identified policies and standards for your organization, how do you hold somebody accountable? Right? Oh, there was that breach and they did what they weren't supposed to do. Well, I didn't know. Prove it. Oh, well, guess what? You remember that acceptable use policy that you signed last year? Did you read it? Because you broke the rules. Build security from the start. Don't bolt it on after. A lot of the tools out here do great things. Fantastic at what they do. Probably 50% of them would be unnecessary if some of the security was built in to the processes and the procedures from the get-go. Still be great for monitoring and alerting when you hit thresholds, but you'd have a lot less worry. Focus on foundations. Cybersecurity awareness, policies, good hygiene. Right? MGM wouldn't have been nearly as bad as if they would have segmented their network properly. Right? And I think we can say that about hundreds of breaches that have happened. Know what you have, right? The old sayings are there for a reason. You can't protect what you don't know that you have. So if you focus on those things, on those basic things, and again, very little cost. Most of it doesn't require spend. You can make a significant difference in the quality of your cybersecurity program. Focus on compliance, contract requirements, cyber insurance. Don't forget privacy. That's going to be the 800-pound gorilla that's going to continue to get bigger year after year after year, and that's a global thing. Measure and manage your risk. It's not just KPIs and feedback from all of your tools. How you set your tools and the actions you take and how quickly you take them are dependent on your organization's risk posture. If you don't know your organization's risk posture and appetite, and you haven't measured it, how do you know what's right and wrong in your organization? How do you know where I should spend or what I should spend? How do I prioritize? Right? And review. None of this is stagnant. Right? The challenge is if we don't have it, we need to build it, we need to bring it into the operation, and it needs to become part of the operational culture. If I do it once a year, is it really doing anything for me? Great. It worked perfectly 365 days ago. And when you get breached 364 days after that, right before you're going to test it again, oh, but it worked. Did it? Did you test it the right way? What we do on a daily basis has to be balanced between the priorities that get set from above when they hear the headlines or they hear the latest issue or whatever, the wonderful vendors and partners that we work with who mean well but have a job to sell, and what we have to do on a daily basis to run an operation and to run it the right way. Right? I've never met a CISO that works in an organization that didn't have a passion for it and didn't do it because that was what they wanted to do. Right? It's what they believed in. So, we're kind of at the crossroads of all that. We have to help explain that. And if we can focus on these things and build the program up from the bottom, rather than just trying to go top down, we're going to get where we want to be a lot faster, a lot more efficiently, a lot less expensive. And anytime you can put those kind of things together and stick them in front of a CEO or a board, it's a winning program. I think that's all we've got. I know we ran out of time before some questions or anything, but if anybody wants to have a discussion about it, I'm more than happy to. You can find me down at the Cycura booth or my contact info. I think they're sharing the slide decks. My contact information is in the slide deck as well, so happy to chat about any of this stuff. Stay safe.